could and maybe talk about it, but we might have other things more important than that. But welcome. It's so good to see you.
Thank you very much.
And in the audience, welcome very much to conversation. The guest here is Meredith Gardner. She's a PhD, behavioral psychologist, and she's done a lot of thinking on the level of strategic thinking and communication, human communications. And she's got a very interesting story to tell. We've been wanting to do it for a long time. Meredith, overwhelmingly welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Harold, I think this is great.
What's great?
We lost a clip.
Well, I know.
And we're under stress, and I want to tell you that I've been laughing as you've seen me.
You've been laughing at me, dear.
No.
Not with me?
No.
You weren't laughing with me?
I'm laughing with you.
You were laughing at me?
I'm acknowledging you in the sport of stress. Because here's what happened. You've been looking for a black clip. We can't find it.
Black clip? We can't find it. I have to put the mic here.
And you didn't lose it. You didn't lose it with me.
No.
You didn't lose it with the people who are assisting this production. You could have really, been volatile. You could have sworn at them, and but you didn't.
I didn't.
No, you didn't. And I was smiling and laughing at the maturity that I experienced because, as a psychologist, I worked with a lot of people who lose it in the corporate world.
I think you were laughing at me because it was like a Charlie Chaplin movie where nothing works. And that's what we laugh at. That's what we laugh at. We don't laugh at things when everything's going smooth. We laugh when people are doing outlandishly crazy things and everything. But
it's your interpretation to think that I was laughing at you.
Well,
and I hope that you hold that I didn't.
I think your work has to do with how people interpret what other people are doing, and I think we ought to get into that.
That's correct. It's your opportunity to interpret it the way you want.
Yeah. And we laugh at the travails, don't we? We don't laugh when everything's going smooth, or we don't even take a note when everything's going smooth. And we laugh when the things are sort of out of sync with what is normal.
But here's what could happen.
Normal's too boring. Or is it? I don't know.
Here's what could happen. You could interpret that I was holding something against you and laughing at you, whereas that was not my intention. But that was your interpretation.
Well, that's all right.
What happens is that people hold on to stuff. Well, that Meredith, she was laughing at me, and then it starts to, like the old telephone, you tell somebody else, and in fact, that wasn't my intention.
No.
I was enjoying
my travail.
No.
In my reaction.
No.
Like Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin. I was like Charlie Chaplin, and the bed won't stay down. Or Laurel and Hardy, and that's what we laugh at when things are
Let me ask you something. When you were 15 years old, if you had lost something and you were stressed out, what would have been the difference between the way you handled the stress then and the way you handled it with great equanimity now?
Boy, 1915, that would have been the year 1950. I might have been more, I wouldn't have been so directly stressed about something like that, I don't think.
Really?
No, that was McCarthy. I might have been bothered about the fascism that was latent in the condition then. Might have been thinking, and I still am in that way. So I'm putting things in a larger context, maybe as a way of getting away from the immediate stress. And
I was going to say, because...
And I always try not to find enemies for something. Because one thing you can do, if something goes wrong, you want to find out who the hell's to blame for it. Like we got this financial crisis.
Right. Who can we blame?
Who the hell did this?
That's right.
And we have a thing that's called scapegoating. I guess it takes
It's easier to point the finger, but guess what? When you point the finger, you got three at yourself. So most of us don't want to take responsibility for our behavior.
Well, we don't want to take responsibility for our bad behavior or for the behavior of a system of which we're a part. Like in a bureaucracy, the thing you have to do is, I'm not sure if it's the right language and everything, but the one thing you have to do, like you get into a big bureaucracy, then you got to cover your ass.
And we feel helpless.
You got to cover your ass within the bureaucracy and make sure you're covered, and the senior vice president isn't going to take note and blame you as the blame goes, and it goes on a lot, the blame game.
On and on and on and on.
In the way the world's organized, and it's getting more that way. And you're dealing with these kind of things all the time.
But people don't take responsibility for their own behavior.
Well, they do, maybe, but they want to make sure that they have to cover their own, they have to cover themselves. And so and if we're in a world where the blame is being who's to blame, you don't want to be the one who's to blame for something when it goes wrong. Might have nothing to do with any particular human thing, but we find somebody to blame. And it's characteristic. Like I was talking, like in a computer system, you got to have a program works, and if you click it, everything works beautiful. If you have one little tilde out of place,
glitch,
the whole thing won't work. That's the problem with systems thinking, where you got all kinds of things. Suppose you got all kinds of people who who are involved in a process, and everybody counts, really counts, and everything has to be lined up like a computer software program, and one doesn't get there on time, or one has to take a sneeze, or so you got a lot of problem of guilt going around, or blame being spread around.
Terrible.
In a world that's becoming increasingly systems in this organization where everybody's interconnected.
I want to take it back to the clip, yes. Because,
the clip. Where is that little clip? We're still looking for it.
Yes,
we got to find
but
it.
But here's the thing, Harold. Somehow, you did not blame other people for the loss of the clip. You could have said, well, it wasn't put on.
It's all Josh's fault.
It could have been Josh. Could have been anybody else's who gave it to you.
Could have been your fault.
Could have been mine.
For bugging me. You were laughing at me. You were making
might
sport
not
of me, and
even,
you didn't appreciate my travail.
It may not have even been in the box when you got it.
No, it was. No, I had seen that.
Okay. Well, see, you acknowledge that.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of people have a bad attitude and blame other people for the clips in their life.
Well, it goes on all the time in the news.
It does, but how does that stop?
And the whole world
But
goes
how
on
does that
like
stop?
That.
You didn't blame. You're a great example. You took ownership. You said, I messed up.
Yeah.
Although you did start to blame the fact that the rug is multicolored.
Why don't they have?
Why don't they have a white rug?
Right. Why, if they have a white rug, then you'd see the black.
But that's
clip.
harmless blame.
But that wouldn't work.
But that's harmless blame.
And it's also a thing about design. You should design things. Things should be designed so they work. Like when you turn on a light switch, the light should come on.
Are you a perfectionist?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, you're coming at a lot of shoulds. You can't have a should.
I know I'm an idealist, and I'd like to have everything work right and everything.
Right.
And I'm also very interested in everything, and I'm very interested in relationship between systems and psychologically and otherwise and so forth. Maybe we could start, because this is a program about you, not me and my little clip. That's a little sidebar.
Well,
it takes place.
But see, I'm blowing this up to be an example of what happens in real life in interaction with people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For want of a clip, people say, to kick a dog.
Yeah.
People come home, they kick the dog, they kick other people, they shoot somebody else, they intimidate other people, all for a clip went wrong.
Yeah, right. That's right. That's what happens all the time.
People blow it up, and then they don't see the responsibility that they have within the system.
Right. They aren't able to see that, Norbert Wiener coined the term cyber. And that thing about cyber, that's really interesting. A program, every tilt has to be completely in place. One little thing out of place, the whole thing works. Now, that's a really important kind of thing that's happening in terms of information communication now, and it affects everything. So it's a model. Everything has to be...
Consequences.
Well, more than
that.
It's a perfectionist necessity to having a system work in terms of things cyber. Everything has to be absolutely perfect when you're doing the code. There's not any room for wiggle room like there is in human relations. You can have some wiggle room. You can laugh. You can do things.
But a lot of people don't have wiggle room, and they don't create it.
Yeah,
and in families and in companies, there's very little wiggle room, especially if you expect perfection.
And there's maybe you need that perfection. Maybe we need the perfection of a computer program for human institutions and human relationships to work. We need absolute perfection.
No such thing.
And if we don't have it,
no such thing.
And there's no chance we're ever going to have it. So we're going to have to live with a situation where we're being confronted with a frustrating situation all the time.
That's not in our control.
No.
However, people get stress with situations and people where it's out of their control. And what's the sense of getting stressed out if you can't...
Yeah, but the system's
if you can't have control.
Yeah, but the system's going to say, like, for instance, you got 45 million people who have no health insurance in the United States of America. They can crawl to the hospital until it'll be gone.
Right.
And so it's not in their control.
You're right, it's not.
And so what are they going to do? We can just say, well, that's it. Or people, they put blame on people. Now there's a thing with the global warming. They got a thing where it's your fault because you wanted to use a 10-watt light bulb when you could have gotten by with a 5-watt light bulb.
Right.
And it's all your fault that everything's falling apart. And that sense of responsibility or accountability, or you could go to the political people. There's no templates that really serve for what we need. We need something new, and it's not there. So there's all kinds of blame going on in the name of accountability, both, let's say, from the left or from the right or from the male or the female or the black or the white or the up and the down. And it's a very conflicted time that we live in.
It is. And when we become aware of what our capabilities, your personal capability, we can only do what we can do.
I couldn't find the clip.
No, but the way, but Harold, the way you dealt
Should I
with
not?
the
Should I stop
stress-
looking for the clip now? We're talking about the clip. We should stop looking for it. Should
No,
we
I
find the
think-
clip and then maybe we can go back and maybe we won't. Then
Well,
I'll be able to address myself to what it is you got to
I
say.
think for the sake
For want of a clip.
for the program,
Yes.
that we can find the clip. But you see, this is so common in
Yeah,
everyday
I know.
life because people blow up the clip.
Yeah.
And then it ruins our day.
Oh, yeah,
It's
and
like
then-
having a bad hair day.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
Or
the
you looked at
weather.
me. You looked at me. You dissed me. You dissed me. You dissed me. You don't
Oh,
respect.
man.
You know, that's
5 years
a biggie,
from now,
right?
you're going to tell me, Meredith, you dissed me because
The
you
clip.
get the clip.
We will.
And-
Can we agree to blame it on the clip and not on each other?
Yes.
Could we do that? Could we get a scapegoat that is a piece of machinery
Right,
that
right.
doesn't mess
Right,
up either
right.
a creature or
But
a
you see, sometimes
sentient
that
being?
is
Maybe we
out-
should do that. You know, blame it on the material world rather than upon ourselves and so forth. How do we get out of the? You're a psychologist, right?
We could blame it, but it's the cause and effect.
Hmm.
You're at cause of the loss of the clip. You know that, right?
Well, I accept
I mean,
that I
you
messed it up
accept it.
because I was frustrated because of the time.
I understand that.
And why are there all these deadlines? Why don't we? And when we get past the pearly gates, there will be no deadlines. Everybody will live in real time, and they won't have deadlines that they're thinking in hours ahead, and the
I hope you're not going
responsibility.
to pearly gates too soon.
No, we don't want to rush there.
No.
But I mean, I would suggest that's the way it should be organized. Maybe up there it's going to be
See, you
organized
use
right.
a lot of shoulds, man.
Yeah.
That is obligation.
yeah, right.
And that means necessity.
Yeah.
And that puts a lot of pressure on you and other people.
Yeah, I know. And then
That's a tough word, should.
don't you think humor is a good way to get at dealing with these kind of things?
Of
If you can
course.
laugh at it, thank God.
Of course.
Can you imagine living where we couldn't have humor? I would blow up. I would blow up if I couldn't laugh. Like you laugh at yourself and everything. I think it's really
Very
a good
important.
outlet, you
Very
know,
important.
to just take everything and
Humor.
theater of the absurd.
You know what the Chinese say about humor?
What do they say?
The Chinese character has fire
Yeah.
and ashes
Right.
and a hand.
Yeah.
And my interpretation is with humor
Yeah.
that if you put your hand in the fire and keep it there too long, you'll burn yourself.
Yeah.
So humor is really fast.
Yeah.
And Milton Berle.
Was wonderful.
He was wonderful.
He was, yeah,
The comedian from the 50s.
Zero
He-
Mostel. I wept when he died.
Well, you know what?
He was just gorgeous.
He was wonderful. A great comedian, like Milton Berle said, humor is like a vacation.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
a
when
thought.
isn't that wonderful? So
Yeah.
we just had a vacation.
Yeah.
And I didn't have it at your expense.
No,
by the way.
I know. Yeah, but
no.
I think we should
was-
question on that. I mean, I
It was a cheap
I do
vacation.
believe
It was a cheap-
you were laughing at
Okay,
me.
well-
You were not laughing with me.
Okay, well, let's get
Big
beyond
difference,
that.
right? Big
Do
difference?
you hear that I'm saying that you have a degree of equanimity? And equanimity is maturity, intellectual and emotional maturity. And you brought that to the lousy clip. Now, some people fall apart.
I'm still bugged by that clip.
Seriously.
thing.
And
Yeah.
when I work with people, it's not the stress that matters. It's
The reaction to the stress, full situation.
I want to say response to it. A reaction is often like a knee-jerk reaction.
Well, we do have those things in the Olympic, you know. I mean, in the reptilian core, we have a lot of things that are just, and the system works
Well,
under.
your response was calm, cool, and collected.
You called that calm, cool,
Yes,
and
I
collected?
do.
I was not calm, cool,
Well,
and collected.
I
I was
think
looking
you
for
were.
the damn clip.
No, I think you were.
Oh,
I've
Well, you're a
worked
shrink.
with-
You should know,
well,
right?
I've worked with some people who, under stress, actually, it's a true story. There was a fellow who had a baseball bat
Yes.
on his wall. And he would have people in his office. He'd take the baseball, and he'd chomp it down like that, and you will do that. You should do that. You know, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, your behavior, although it was stressful, you
Yeah.
were stressed, you weren't taking it out on people. He was very intimidating. And there are different ways to handle stress.
Yeah, I guess that's a big issue too, isn't it? You're a
today.
We've
Come
got
on.
you down. Maybe we were supposed to be talking about Meredith Gardner,
Well,
not me
I am
and my
talking
damn
about
clip. Okay,
well,
so,
because
yeah.
I talk about the response to people, the response that people have to stress, as an example,
Yeah.
or the response to different personalities. Some people get along better. Some people interact better in teams than other people.
Right.
So, what do you want to ask?
Well,
me?
I would ask you, first of all, we got you down as a behavioral psychologist. Now,
Yeah.
psychology and psychiatry and the way the human mind and emotional system and everything works is a huge subject.
Yes.
I think it's as complex as economics. We did a program the other day, or we re-aired a program with Isaac Asimov, the great polymath, and the only thing he was never able to get around his mind was economics. He couldn't deal with it at all, just his mind. He worked on everything else, but he couldn't work on economics. And now you get these people coming, we got this economic thing and everything. So it's very complex, and human behavior and human psyche and human, there's a big, it's not enough to say you're a psychologist. If you say you're a behavioral psychologist, I think of B.F. Skinner, or I think of behavioralism as a way of seeing the human condition,
Yes.
human personality, human expression.
Yes.
And then I see something like Rollo May, or I see somebody like Carl Rogers. That would be intuitive, that would be humanistic, that's
Mine's
different.
all about
So
behavior.
it's no good to say you're a psychologist. You got to say what kind of a psychologist.
Specificity.
Now you are a behavioral
Yes, I am.
psychologist.
Yes.
You're in the camp with B.F. Skinner, conditional response, and that kind of thing. What distinguishes a behavioral psychologist from, let's say, an intuitive or a humanistic psychologist?
I'm all about behavior and personality.
Okay.
And the consequences of behavior. So if anything, I'm more, I don't know, Carl Jung and
Carl Jung, you put Jung
collective-
in?
Sure. Well, the collective and the responsibility and the interaction of people in our mind and what we bring to it. I looked at, I'm sorry
You're
to say.
going back to the clip.
Yeah, I know,
You're going to go back to the clip. See, that's the way the
yeah.
psychiatrists do.
Yeah.
They see things like that.
Well, I'm not a clinical psychologist. I look at external behavior and personality and put the two together. I don't know who I'm close to. I don't know. Sometimes I say that I'm someplace in between, I don't know, Freud and, I don't know, public speaking, someplace in the middle.
Between Freud and public speaking.
Yeah.
Let's analyze it.
Let's
then.
yeah. Well, see, I don't like to analyze and go back.
Yeah.
I like to
Right.
be in the present, and I like to have a big front mirror. I mean, not a big front pane of glass rather than a rearview mirror.
Or a canvas to paint upon?
A canvas, yes, because we create our canvas every day.
We create our own reality?
You bet.
You think we do? Jane Roberts, are you familiar with Jane Roberts?
No.
She was a psychic. Okay.
Okay.
Didn't know. A lot of the New Age people and everything love her consciousness and comes from another level. There's another level.
I do believe that too.
Do you have a belief in a reincarnating or an afterlife to the material life that we individually live? Or is it relevant? Maybe we don't have to talk about it.
I don't think that's really
We could
relevant.
talk about clips.
We could talk about. I don't think that a past life is relevant, but if it were, what I bring from my past. As a matter of fact, last week, in a sense, seems like a past life for me because it seems so long ago.
I know what you mean.
You know,
Yeah.
and so, am I dragging my past incarnations of? I think of myself as an American Indian, or I think of myself as an Indian from
Most
New Delhi.
people, when they go back to past lives, they're not talking about your current life. You were
I
born.
know. That's
they're
why I
talking
say-
about that there's a reincarnating thing through the system.
That's
and
correct.
It's amazing how many people, when they go back and they try to conjure back their own past life, and they get these states of consciousness where they can get in touch with it. Like Seth had this consciousness from a past, and there's a continuity.
really get
it's
into
amazing
that
how many
with-
people identify themselves as princes and princesses in the past lives of the great kingdoms and so forth. A lot of Nefertitis and things they find themselves related to. But it's funny that way they do that. When reality, most people are wallowing around in the mud.
Right. I don't get into that, especially with people in the corporate world, because, you know, I mean, I've been called a corporate psychic.
Okay.
Corporate
psyche.
Corporate psychic or corporate fortune teller, because I'm intuitive about their behaviors, their skills, their intentions, and their values. So, for example, I say that behavior is determined by our values.
You say that?
Yes, I do. I believe that.
They have this conditioned response, like a dog, like a Pavlovian dog will learn. And there's a lot of the things in efficiency experts, what do you call them, industrial engineers who get efficiency. You had to condition people, like, say, for instance, they used to be on a farm in the turn of the 19th, 20th century. They'd be farming, they'd feed the chickens, and they'd milk the cow, and then they had to condition themselves to be on an assembly line at a Ford plant and be there for 10, 12 hours a day doing exactly the same thing. You would have to be conditioned to where you could rationalize this thing, which is quite inhuman, to do in order to rationalize the fact that you're going to get money to buy bread and so forth. You see what I mean? They have to be conditioned.
Attitude.
Yeah.
Because
well, if you learn to be able to, you have to learn to be able to be compliant to what you have to do in order to deal with the necessities of life and the ability to eat. If somebody
has a vision and is doing a menial job,
which most people are,
then that vision could be very helpful in saying, okay, I do this ridiculous, dumb job. However, I make a living.
Yes.
I'm grateful for it.
Right.
And it will help me put my kids through college.
Right.
And
they have other values. It's values. They're bringing home the bacon.
That's
and
correct.
It's called responsibility.
That's correct.
And that's largely what education is about, don't you think? Is teaching people to do that kind of thing rather than being their spontaneous reality of their consciousness.
I don't think education is doing a good job of it
I think
at
education, the main function of what we call education structurally is to teach people to do what they're told by an authority figure. That's mainly what the generic thing is.
I think that's very sad.
Well, but is that the case? And are the institutions by which we organize ourselves, say corporate, it's very fascistic. You have, in my way of thinking, you have a senior vice president. Everybody has to do with senior
hierarchical.
Hierarchical.
Yes.
And it's like the military. Did you ever go in the military?
But that's changing.
Did you ever go in the military? Do you think it's changing?
I hope so.
You think? Yeah, but is it?
I think it is. Because yesterday I visited a big corporation, and the person meeting me for lunch was a half an hour late. And I said, well, I didn't mind that you were late. What I minded was having to stand, and I wish that somebody
had a chair you could sit in.
Well,
that's engineering, or that's
okay. No. The building manager did not want chairs in the lobby. Okay, so I said, well, if you had your assistant call me, she said, I wanted to, but I don't have an assistant. I said, you don't, and you're a senior executive. She said, they're flattening organizations today, and so I need to do all of my phone calling. I was in a meeting with even more senior people. I don't have subordinates. I don't have assistants.
I don't have privates. I don't have private or corporate or lieutenants.
I have to do everything myself.
Well,
so she apologized, and she said, look, if I had
somebody... And she did it in a very human way.
Oh, she did.
She didn't try to cover it up and say, what are you bothering me about?
No. She said,
you know what they can always say? The rules are. The rules are that you can't have an assistant. You have to, if I'm,
Well,
like
these are the new rules
You know
today.
what I'm saying? Yeah.
It costs too much money to have assistants.
All right.
So you have to know how to do all your own emails, all your own phone calling, do all of that.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that we need to be responsible, and then we need to collaborate. And it's quite a big deal today, because if you share the responsibility, then you share it with other people.
Yeah.
And you give away some of the stress, and you share the stress. And then you also collaborate. So I think that people have to have a lot of values, and I don't believe that this is taught, certainly in the business schools. They're finally getting around to teaching values and soft skills.
Okay, that's
in addition to
they're also using
skills.
In the political dialogue soft power, aren't they? They're using that's like PR and that kind of thing they're doing. But essentially, that's what they're doing. And we do have an overlay of saying we want to. That guy used to be on a farm in 1900. Most of the people, the major occupation was a family farmer in 1900.
Yeah.
Overwhelming. That was it. Number 2 was domestic help for the emerging bourgeois. Domestic help.
And they wanted boys.
That was number 2.
Boys on the farm.
Well, the boys on the farm, but they were. If you're on the farm and you're doing a lot of different things, it's closer and everything. And then they had to go to we had the industrialization process beginning to happen, and we all like Modern Times movie. It was great and everything. And they had to go and do this thing where
and
they
who's teaching skills? Who's teaching communication? Who's teaching values? Were they learning that?
Well, they weren't learning any value other than if they were there. And lots of people. I was from Detroit. And Detroit was a place where they had a lot of assembly lines. Mr. Ford started it. It was so efficient.
Yes,
All you had to do is get a bunch of people, put them there 12 hours a day doing exactly the same thing.
The inhumanity of it.
It was inhumane, and then they had to justify that, whereas milking a cow and doing something, walking, doing, taking, you understand what I'm doing. I mean, that's a situation. But then they set up all these, and then that transmogrified into bureaucracies. And you've got gigantic corporations, and you got these. I went to IBM one time. I couldn't believe it. It was just miles of desks lined up, all doing the same kind of thing. And there's no way that you could be counting one person in there doing anything that could be seen as creative. They were just fiddling a task like somebody doing something on an assembly line. Most of the jobs are like that. And all they want is materials, and that's the way in which you get bread to eat, is becoming somebody who will fit into a large corporate system that is fascistic,
but people
is
are
built down,
afraid to
top
think.
down. And so that's the kind of society that we have. And don't you think we have to do a lot of rationalizing in order to us continue with that, particularly when the computers are going to do so much of that routine stuff? Maybe there's a big transformation taking place, liberation, where people are able to do what they want to do rather than what they have to do in order to have bread to eat.
That's part of it. And I think that our society has so taught us to care about what other people think about us, and
did you ever
not think?
Tell me about. Let me ask you something, dear. You're of the female gender, right? Of
so far,
Homo
this morning
sapien.
I know
Yeah,
that,
right.
yes.
And I am. And back in and I'm older, right? And in the days when I was a young man, you're talking 15. By the time I was 18, 19, they drafted young men into the military. Did you have to ever go in the military as an enlisted man?
No, but they drafted me because they thought I was a male. They wrote Mr. Meredith.
Oh, that was just a mistake.
Yeah,
but that
it
got
was a
corrected
mistake.
as soon as they saw you.
Of course.
Yeah,
sure.
and you could prove.
Yes.
And you had proof positive.
Yeah, I'm proof positive. Yes.
Anyway, that's a model. That's a model. And if you're an enlisted man, I didn't get along very well in the Army. I used to try and explain. No, but we had these things called drill sergeants. They were people, they'd been well trained. And I would try to explain to them how we could do things democratically.
They don't want to know that.
They didn't.
No.
What I'm trying to say is that's a model for the world.
But isn't that different today?
Yeah, and they had gotten there by working hard and being a thing, and I would do it with good. Everything was always done impishly and fun and everything, and so we got along okay because you could use humor. That's it. The kids are all watching the Comedy Channel now and everything like that. But you used to try and explain to them we could do things democratic, do things. And how come you get to stand inside there? We used to make you stand in the cold. I don't like cold. And you'd stand there in the cold, and they're inside the building with a pot-belly stove, which is nice and warm, and you're just standing there. And you're learning to do that.
Harold,
No. I'm saying it's like a Woody Allen movie. I mean, life is so much like, and they're there, and so you would try to explain, look, why are we standing out here in the cold? It's to learn that you will do what you're told.
That's correct.
Also, in that First World War, to get those guys to go up over the trench, to go and kill somebody, or to go and kill. And you have to do it. That's what I'm saying. That's the major force that organizes world society.
I want to believe that mentality and that attitude is shifting so that people will listen to the ideas.
Do you think the sergeants are going to listen to the young men coming up and telling them how we ought to do things? I don't think so. I don't think they're doing it now, and I don't think they're doing it in the world. The old systems still all hold, And we got a few people run everything. You got generals, and they run everything, and then they got people below them. And the model for the military is very much like corporate. They got a thing like that. You got a CEO, then you got a senior vice president, you got a thing, and they're all worrying about covering their own territory and doing what they're told and doing it and fitting in a similar way to the military.
Do you listen to ideas and possibilities where it's happening differently?
I look for it. I don't see it very much. I don't see anything very much. I see a lot of.
I don't think you would. I don't think that you would allow it to register, if I might say, because you are very strong in your beliefs that this is the way it is, and it has been happening this way, and that's the way it is, and
still is.
And
yeah.
still is.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Yeah, don't you?
I
don't think there's a little nuance. You know, a little nuance, but it gets a little bit. You get to a little. James Joyce, my favorite poet, he says, "History is a nightmare from which I'm attempting to awaken." And we're making some progress.
Yes,
and things are making progress.
It's very slow.
Everything.
It's very slow. However, if people are close-minded, and I think you're a bit close-minded on this subject.
On the possibility of the military's. Go on.
Yeah. Well, I think also that the military has shifted one hair's width away towards some collaboration. Have to.
Collaboration.
Well, response to what people are thinking. I mean, if they're not responsive, then it's the same old, same old. So I don't know.
That's good.
I don't think I'm Pollyanna.
No, I understand. Yeah.
There was a book written a while ago, and I can't remember it for the moment, but he was the logistics commander in the Gulf War, and I had a long name like that. Anyway, his method for getting feedback from the troops was to take 3x5 cards, and if you can't put it on a 3x5 card, forget it. Then don't give me this feedback. And the 3x5 cards would make it up from the sergeant to all the people up. And finally, the most important ones would make it up to him. And that's how they got feedback. Today, we use the internet.
Yeah, we got the internet.
We have petition sites. We have all kinds of feedback, interesting ways and all that. So hopefully there's some, the idea of command and control in corporations is just out. It's
What do you mean out? I'm sorry. Thank you. You're in touch with it. I don't see that having been that big change you're talking about, seeing it,
look, people
because I'm not in it.
Do
but
you
it
know
seems
command
to me
and
still,
control people?
Of course.
So.
Yeah, control freaks are usually the ones at the top of and they're on the boards of directors, and they set up the template by which the planet operates. Our leaders, our so-called leaders, and they all have the same characteristics with a little nuance and everything, but they're all still the same. And we still just live, we're like serfs on a feudal estate picking up leaves, the template being set by a few people who own all the assets and have control over the process of communication.
You represent the dark and the negativity.
Not really.
No?
No, not necessarily. No, I don't hang out there. I just see it. That's just the way it is.
I don't feel like a serf.
It's always been like that, hasn't it?
No, I don't always.
When was it good? When was it good? Emperors, we had emperors in Rome, and the people were wallowing around in the mud. Then we had kings, and people were wallowing around in the mud. And we had, Serengeti Plain, we were there. It might have been more democratic back in the old days before civilization and everything. Oriental despotism, slaves.
What does this have to do with entitlement? I want to ask you about that. Because I think that a lot of people think that they are victims.
Most people have been victims, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Most people have been victims.
I would think so. Yeah, in terms of
I don't share that.
In terms of what the future requires. I mean, they haven't been free. In order to be able to do what it is that they, as an individual entity, might want to do, everything is subjugated to the rules of the workplace.
What would happen then if people develop the communication skills in order to have conversation and dialogue with other people
Well,
around,
I think you're not
personally and professionally? What would happen? What would
I don't
shift?
know. That would be, if you had that, then you would have a very different world.
You bet. That's what I'm about. Teaching communication skills to people so that they can be understood, and I give you what you need, and I also get what I need in the process. And it's not by command and control.
Oh, it's not?
No.
So we don't need senior vice presidents. We just have all vice presidents. We have an anarchy. We have everybody has control over their own life, and everybody has control over. They don't have to listen to anybody else. They don't have a boss who's going to set the schedule. They don't have to go down in this time and turn the nuts. We don't have girls over in Pakistan and other places sewing things endlessly in a wage slave system. We don't have wage slavery. We don't have inequality. We don't have the template being set by a few people like the kings of feudal Europe used to do.
I think that the women who sew can be treated nicely and have decent light.
They like that because they're more compliant, apparently. Females seem to be more compliant to that. They can put up with that, probably a longer-term thing. But we don't have anything like what you would call a liberated order for the mass of the people. I mean, I don't think you would claim that. We got 60% of the world that live on less than $2 a day. The institutions that we claim are intrinsic to our notions of human nature.
But don't you think that the values are going to be shifting? I was just in India.
Why would they change?
Why would they change?
Yeah.
Well, eventually, the people who are being paid $2 a day in India, as an example, I was there last year, and I saw a very pregnant woman shoveling cement. Oh, my gosh.
Horrible.
Horrible.
Yeah.
And I met the gentleman from the British company who was there, and he said, well, you know, they're willing to work for $2 a day. And I thought to myself, okay. I hope, I'm not sure that it's happening right now, but that is indentured slavery, and these people have no other possibility at the moment.
No, but that leader, the owner of that company could go to a country just beside there where they'll do it for $1 a day. They can race to the bottom and really beat the bejesus out of the people.
So
and that's what they're doing.
I say it starts with education, and some people...
Education, yeah.
Yeah, well...
Well, what's education about?
Well, see, I'm going to say...
Yeah.
I think that values are very important.
Okay.
And so if we start with values and you give people skills... and they learn how to interact with other people.
Social skills, those are,
Social skills.
That has a lot to do with the family setting, I think, don't you?
Well, we don't really do too well. I mean, how many single parents do we have? And I don't know if the church does it, or the communities do it, or the parents. I don't know where.
That's what I'm saying.
So,
and
so
we think
it might be in the school, and it could be.
Well, it starts at the home too. And you know, you're a psychologist. You even mentioned Mr. Freud and so forth. And one of the things that really impresses me is the minute we come out of the womb, the seconds we come out of the womb, we are learning like crazy, and all of the things are being implanted, and that kind of thing in the early thing. And we don't pay much attention to that. But what's going on in those? We're being taught, and it's so dysfunctional.
Yes, it is.
Because everybody is being submitted to the same slavery. I mean, if you're in a slave system and you're trying to set up a system where you don't have autonomy, or the people don't have autonomy.
Parents can have their children.
They can't do anything with the parent. They can't be there taking care of the parent, because one thing they have to do is get there to where the senior vice president tell them what to do in order to get $10 an hour to buy bread. That's the one thing that really holds. You got to get to school to be on time. You got to be in terms of what the boss is telling you. That's what the educational process is teaching.
Have to be
not nurturing and loving. Maybe a woman wants to take care of her kid and play or something. No time for that. No time for those human values. Only money. They go out and work 2 and 3 jobs trying to pay the rent and trying to keep ahead. That's the situation that is the reality.
There are some companies, Harold. You may not want to hear this, but there are some companies out there, some very big ones that I've worked with, that have programs to help educate their employees to balance a home, work, family life. There are, maybe not enough of them, but I think that people need to take responsibility for the life that they lead.
Okay.
And instead of blaming the boss for what happened.
No, not the boss, the system. The system.
But people
the system is enslaving.
Make up a system.
Yeah, I know they make it up. But
what I'm
trying to say, Meredith, is we live in a slave system. We live in a system that is essentially one that isn't very different out of history, where you got a few people running everything, setting everything up. We call them leaders. They don't have vision of liberating. Do you know there's 100 trillion cells in a human organism, and every cell matters? And it works as a system. The clip, remember we missed the clip? If you got one thing going, you got runaway, it's cancer. You got that.
Right.
But
Right,
if you look at human society, it's a dangerous metaphor and everything. You look at society, there are so many people that can't begin to think straight because they're being pushed around and put into situations that are untenable in terms of what the future requires. The future is something like the birth of a new way of being, which is called liberation, and we don't have it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Who do you think liberates ourselves? Do you liberate yourself?
No, I don't believe in the idea. Well, I do. Anybody can do that. You can stand in a circle and say, I'm liberated, but it doesn't count. Well, really, I mean, individual liberation doesn't count for much, but what does matter is a collective liberation of the whole organism.
But if you have dysfunctional people all the way around, how do you expect for people to be centered and then communicate?
Well, I don't know how the hell they can, because everybody is so caught up with outdated notions of human nature. First of all, they say, well, you can't have a good society where things are really just and people are able to be free, to be able to do what they want. Everybody should be able to do what it is they want, rather than what some authority system is telling them they have to do. It's all being outer-directed, conditional response.
But if you don't like that particular boss, can't you take yourself to go to a different place?
Well, suppose everybody. Let's take another. Suppose
you don't like
everybody.
This city, go to
suppose
another city.
everybody. Yeah. Okay. Suppose that's called liberation. Now, suppose everybody in the world. Let's just suppose at the level of material reality.
Okay.
Not without going into spirituality. Avoid spirituality because you get all kinds of confusion.
Right.
I mean, but suppose everybody. Just for the hell of it, everybody was like some people are, although it's so rare that you get dysfunction coming from it. Suppose everybody from the moment they were born into this world were able to do exactly what they wanted and would be able to be sure that they have whatever they need to eat, whatever they need to house, whatever they need to express art, whatever they need to be with who they want to be, where they want to be, without having to react to somebody else telling them what they have to do in order to be existing, and also being claimed that that's human nature and that kind of thing. The constrictions that are put upon human freedom and ability to be able to do what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And they had that guarantee to them, let's say, by, just put it in money terms. They didn't have to think about that.
Okay.
They didn't have to be submitted to that negative feedback. You're going to have some negative feedback because you have to have some. But suppose you had that and everybody was, in a certain sense, liberated to do what they wanted to do. I think that's where we have to go if we're not going to blow the whole thing up. Mm-hmm. And we're very far from that.
But we don't have the skills to do it.
Well, do you think so?
I don't think
you don't think we could provide for everybody in a way new and different from what has been the history?
Providing is a different story.
Remember, history is a nightmare. I wouldn't want to live in a world where you didn't have anesthetic, you have a bullet to bite on when you have to have your leg cut off. It's a nightmare. When we're going around, you're running around. Most of our time on planet Earth was probably running around from big cats that ate us with alarming regularity. We were prey, so it's coming. So now we're getting to the point, and we're still there, but we still don't have yet a leadership or an element that is where people will be able to be free to be what they want to be without having to be reacting to large
Do you sleep at night?
I sleep very well.
You do?
Of course.
Because I experience you as a very broad thinker.
Yes.
And
I'm very optimistic.
You are?
Oh, totally optimistic.
Gosh, I want to listen to this again. I don't hear optimism at all.
Oh, no, I'm totally optimistic.
I hear negativity.
I could go farther with the negativity. Do you know what they have?
No, please don't do that.
No, let's go all the way with it. Let's go negative. Let's go negative.
But that's all I've been hearing the whole time here.
Well, okay.
Maybe it was a clip that induced this.
It's that damn clip. Let's blame it on the clip. Let's start a movement. I want to have a march on Wall Street.
Let me tell you something.
Blame it on the clip.
I would not want to be around you when you really, really had stress. If, in fact...
Yeah.
I mean, I thought...
Yeah.
Even though you thought I laughed at you.
Not with...
You thought I laughed at you. Okay.
It's okay.
It is okay.
I laugh at people.
I've learned to accept
I
you
understand.
Want to retaliate to me. Okay. But I'll tell you something. I liked your equanimity, but I don't like your dark side.
Oh, well, the dark side. Well, I mean, it's called reality, in my view, and everything. And let's go further.
What do you call that structure? Isaac Asimov structure.
Well, Isaac Asimov.
I mean, you take one little thing and the whole
well,
thing
that's
disappears.
systems thinking. That's true. I would think it better than Isaac Asimov with Buckminster Fuller. We had a few people who were putting some thought to things in a comprehensive way.
Oh, was
and getting
Fuller,
yeah,
right.
Buckminster Fuller was great.
Geodesic dome.
Well, that's Fuller. Yeah, that's one expression of architectural.
The planet is like a geodesic dome.
More than you would realize, darling. You know what's coming is carbon-60. We're only about 3 or 4 years off carbon-60. Everything's going to change with that. That's going to be, and that's a good way to see reality too. But carbon-60 is coming. It's called Buckminster Fullerene. It's going to be the basis of all information technology. The ability, it's going to be molecular, and it's going to be able to process information like computers. That is going to go exponential. The line's going to go like that.
Okay, so I'm going to translate that into baby talk.
Okay.
My understanding. Mm-hmm. Okay, which I didn't understand.
Well, you brought up Fuller.
I know, but I didn't understand one thing that you said. What I do understand is that if you take a geodesic dome and it's like a bunch of triangles.
Well, there's
and
60 vertices.
If you take,
it exists in reality. Yeah.
I can't.
It's called. It looks like a soccer ball. That's reality.
Correct. And a bunch of
vertices that are things. 60
triangles.
60.
And then if you take one of these, the structure falls apart. I
well.
mean,
yeah,
so
it wouldn't be carbon-60 then.
No, I'm not talking carbon.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, yeah. You're talking geodesic dome.
Geodesic dome.
Right, yeah.
People have interrelationships, and we do not know how to communicate and make our needs known. So for example, to use the Detroit example of the assembly line,
yeah.
They now have, I don't know, years ago, 10, 15 years ago, they put people in teams because the guy that was screwing on the lug nuts, on the hubcap, had no clue that he was building a car. So then they put them into a team, and then that lug nut guy could take pride in the fact that he was part of a whole.
Yeah, it's called co-option, yeah. But they have beyond that. Lord Keynes said in his letter to his grandchildren in 1930, you are going to be confronted. Well, maybe before we go to Lord Keynes saying we're going to have technologically induced unemployment, massive unemployment.
Oh, hello.
And the only way we distribute income to the peasants, to us,
yes.
is through their having a job through which they get money to buy food. And that's the principal organizing principle for the society, totally outdated in terms of what the future requires. But before you go
isn't that what we have today?
That's what we have today. It's
yes,
inherited
absolutely.
out of it. And then we've also got notions of human nature. We got, the Constitution of the United States and all these institutions and so forth. But let's go negative for a while. We have an extent. What's unique about humanity in the consciousness to 3.8 billion years, this planet?
Yeah.
13.7 billion years, this universe. And there's an evolutionary process. At 3.8 billion years, organic evolution started. It culminates in terms of consciousness in Homo sapien 200,000 years ago, 10,000 generations. The point is that we're now coming after 10,000 generations of Homo sapien with a unique capability to extend consciousness into the environment and make the environment other than in an Eden-like sense is given, which is the lot of most all of the creatures.
Which is
we can. That they can extend consciousness through what we call technology or tools.
Okay, yes.
Other creatures cannot do that.
That's correct.
Beavers make dams, but to a limited. But we can do it to the max. And the thing that's changing is not human biologically, but the technological extensions of it. And it has consequences because we reached the point finally in that process. We finally used it to where you would get first you get a club and you could hit somebody over the head, or you could hit a creature,
like the baseball bat.
Yeah. Right. Okay, and then you get a bow and arrow, and then you get a spear, and then you get a blunderbuss, and then you get a rifle, and then you get a Gatling gun.
Then
you get theory of relativity, 2005. You get atomic weapons, you get hydrogen weapons, you get wave weapons.
Okay.
We're finally at a point with that where you could have the power to go and steal the grain from another tribe for your tribe, and all of that. The nation state, all the institutions we build up to where the weapon systems now.
Yes, could blow us up.
No, wait. Couldn't do it as recently as when you and I were born, Second World War. We were impotent after 200,000 years. We now have weapon systems that if there was a miscalculation and they were unleashed, it would mean the end of this
planet.
species
That's
and
correct.
this collection of consciousness in universe.
So what's your point?
The point being is, what's the adverse side of that negative possibility? And that's where they are now. It could start in Israel. It could start in Kashmir. We got Islam. All this. We still have the old institutions.
I think we blow ourselves up in our apartments and homes every day.
No, I'm talking about the species.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not talking about individual life.
I know you are.
And that's new.
But because we
that's
do it,
existentially new.
Harold, we do it when we blame other people. I was called for jury duty a while ago.
Did you go? Did you get out of it?
I did.
Did you try to get out of it?
Not really.
Okay. Did you have to serve?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But I spent a day there, and when I had to sign up,
You used to have to sign 2 days.
maybe I was there for 2 days.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
I'm
it's a
blackout.
standard now.
But my point is that when I had to sign up, I don't know. I guess I was reading something about the Mayans and the end of the world, 2012.
2012 is coming, yeah.
It's coming. And I said, you know what? I don't think that the end of the world is 2012. I said, I think it's today, every day. And I said, I think that there are aliens on this planet every day because people are horrible, they're nasty, they're angry, they're paranoid, they're hurtful. And I said, I don't think that we have to wait to 2012. You're talking about systems thinking and blowing ourselves up.
I'm thinking about capability.
And I'm thinking, we do that every day in our own family.
Well, all right, I was trying to say you call me negative for saying what the reality is. That's it. We're living in a situation. All right, now the reason I brought up the negative, right? You want to carry it to the extreme.
Yeah.
Because you can't get to the extreme until you get to the extreme of that. So you got yin yang. And you got this negative capability. We're so clever. We finally got there. We now can commit species-wide suicide of this conscious anti-entropic function in the universe, bringing conscious understanding to the broader cosmos that has been our pleasure to be on the leading edge of that.
Right.
We've gotten to that point, and there are probably other systems on probability to reach that point and did the same thing that we're very likely to do, which is to do ourselves in.
So how
now that's an existential reality.
So how are we going to avoid that?
Well, the question is that's at the level of capability. We can only model it. We can't test it. Some people say, what the hell, let's do it, and maybe there'll be a couple survivors in New Guinea or something, of the Homo sapien. But that's new. We haven't been able to do that.
See, I think we need to help each other. You can't eat a watermelon except bite by bite. So the question is, where do we start to avoid what you're talking about?
That's exactly what I'm interested in. I think you are too. So that's negative. We went all the way to the negative. About as negative as you can get, blowing everybody up and probably taking a lot of the rest of the creatures with us. Bring it back to the positive. That's at the level of capability, not reality.
Yes.
It's not get rid of reality. Get rid of the existence of what's there. Get rid of the practicality. Get rid of all of that. You're dealing with capability.
I don't think that we
have
to
to
get rid of that.
No, but just for the time being.
Okay.
Suspend judgment.
So
you go over on the what is the equally existentially significant alteration in the level in the evolution of capability in this anti-entropic process of running across entropy syntropic function that is biological evolution is an anti-entropic function.
Could you tell me that in baby talk,
moves,
please? Because I don't understand what you're saying.
Anti-entropic. The second law of thermodynamics, all systems move toward chaos.
Tell me in baby talk English so I'm going to understand.
That's it. All right. Yeah. Second law of thermodynamics, all systems, closed systems, move toward entropy or dissolution.
Yes.
And that is the force of the universe.
And what are we going to put in its
Bucky Fuller
place?
said we had as an anti-entropic function was the biological process that apparently into our planet only, we haven't had any other example of it, is an anti-entropic function.
Could you please tell me what you're saying?
Anti-entropic, anti-chaos, anti-destruction.
Okay.
Anti-entropic function moving across entropy and bring increased conscious pattern of understanding. It's been a long time coming. And we're getting to the point where we can now take the measure of the universe.
So how do people understand each other?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You're talking a language I don't even understand.
No, you're talking a language of a broader reality to the level of capability.
Okay.
That's the realm of the intellectual.
Most people don't. That's right.
Okay, but it's not that hard. It's not hard. It's very simple.
Your viewing audience, do you really think that they fly at 100,000 feet?
Nobody can understand. It's not hard. It's talking. You can understand we can destroy the species?
Yes, I can.
You can understand that.
I can understand
Put that well in our mind. We couldn't do it in 1945. We tried, okay?
But what do we do now to avoid that?
Well, then why don't we try to think? Or why don't we try to think about what is the averse side? What is different on the positive side in terms of this evolutionary process, equally existentially significant to the fact, no, what is the difference?
People
what
think
has changed
in narrow,
now you're going back to, no, you're going back to the particular. I'm talking about in the larger pattern.
I understand, but how are we supposed to get flying 100,000
How about
feet
thinking?
in the air?
By not 100,000 feet in the air, just thinking, that's all. What would be an alteration at the level of capability? Not, oh, maybe this. Yes, the
I
book.
want to tell you what the Chinese say about thinking.
Okay.
Page 134.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm not sure that you know what fontanelles are. Do you?
I don't know what I've never heard the term.
Okay,
no.
fine. So when...
And let's show them the book, too.
Okay,
Let them know.
okay. Thinking starts with your heart's inclination.
The heart is a muscle.
You have a comment on everything. Can I please finish?
Sorry.
Okay. This is what...
Where the hell's the clip? Where's the clip?
Okay, listen. Eastern belief teaches that when you think, the vital fluid of your heart acts on your brain, combining the domains of your head and heart. You see, Westerners only think up here. And they're saying you have to think with your head and heart. The fontanelles are, or the soft spots on a baby's skull.
Yeah, they have to be to get out the birth canal.
See?
Sorry.
Allowing for flexibility during birth.
Yeah.
So the brain goes like that, and there are these little spaces that have to come really close.
In the
and
birth,
then
yeah.
over time, the skull hardens and closes these spaces to protect the brain.
Yeah.
These spaces, I'm so glad you agree. These
of course,
spaces
that's
measure
common
the
knowledge.
growth and development of a child.
Yeah.
The more rigid the boundaries and conditions of the heart, the less the free thinking. Benchmarking your development, flexibility opens you to new thoughts. And so the balance of heart and mind creates space to be an elite thinker. So the Chinese, the characters are composed of a bunch of
They're
lines.
ideograms. They're not linear.
Ideograms.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's
so
different.
they say the fontanelles and a heart. That's the literal translation of thinking. And I say that the fontanelles are flexibility and that heart makes for tranquility. You have to be calm and peaceful in your thinking and to be flexible in order to have thinking. I don't think people like to be flexible. Because people often have a vested interest in being right.
Yeah. Yeah, we started off talking about that. Yeah.
We
and
did,
the
oh my
system
God, it
is
seems
now.
like 400 years ago.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, Harold, in order to get to that kind of systems thinking, I'm saying that we have to do something out of eat a watermelon bite by bite. We need to learn how to communicate so that
people can understand.
People can understand in effect.
Wait, okay, and I want to show the book. Bring it up because we're out of time. Can you believe it?
Think better,
we're out
lead
of
better.
time. We're out of think better.
Lead better.
Lead better.
And I'm Meredith
and
Gardner.
And this is Meredith Gardner, who's been our guest, and she's a grand person, as you can see. And we're going to find that damn clip. And that's going to take care of everything. That's going to be the missing link that's going to put it all together.
And call me, 212-769-9340.
We're going to be running the graphics,
Great.
and we'll let her know how they can be in touch with Meredith.
send me an
And she
email.
does a lot of these ideograms, and that's Eastern thinking and all that kind of stuff. I just see the heart is a thing for the duality of consciousness, but the consciousness
Of course, why not?
is in the brain, and the heart is a muscle, and it's a metaphor.
Oh, Harold,
But
you're a mess. You're a mess.
Well,
but
I don't
that's okay.
think so. I'm glad it made a lot of people think that, but I don't. To me, what's happened on that thing to where you can destroy, we have transcended at the level of capability, material scarcity, and it's never mentioned. It can't be mentioned because all the institutions are formulated in a condition. We need a system qualitatively, like the birth at the end of a pregnancy. We're coming to that if we're going to make it.
Yes.
And the clue to what they would model we have transcended material scarcity, not only for humanity, but for the creatures in the ecology. We're coming into a new relationship to the broader cosmos. And it would be nice if intellectuals could do that. It's the intellectuals falling down on the job because they're zeroed in on the possibility of making money within the old context by which the planet is operating.
Their values are off.
Right. Anyway,
Their values are off.
That's my thinking.
Leaders.
And Bucky Fuller is one of the leaders of that, and we need a whole entirely new economic system, and we ain't seen nothing yet, as Milton Berle, was it, who used to say? I forget who it was that said that, but liberation is at hand. It's a little bit off, but we're privileged to be alive when we're coming into a new relationship to the broader cosmos of a liberated humanity like an orchestra.
Well, you figure out the economic system.
Well, yeah.
And I'll teach the people in it.
Great.
Perfect.
Between the two of us, I think we got it licked, and we're going to find that damn clip.
Wonderful.
Okay, can I keep?
Yes.
I'm going to take it.